Welcome back once again to MSBS Weekly Guided Meditation led by Phra Goh. Today is the 9th of January 2024. They just concluded a retreat with us in December. So this week we'll be revisiting on the subject of Maha Satipatthana, just like our society's name, Maha Satipatthana Buddhist Society. Bhante will be leading the homage to the Buddha and taking a 5 precepts for Buddhists. Now let us compose our minds, put our palms together and welcome Bhante. Over to you, Bhante.
Okay, thank you, Terence, for the intro. So we can begin by paying respects to the Buddha by bowing 3 times. First bow, second bow, third bow. Okay, and we begin with the opening chant, the homage. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And the 3 refuges. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. And the 5 precepts. Pāṇātipada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kāmesu micchācārā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majjapamādātāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so good evening everyone, and again Happy New Year. Today is the first lesson of MSBS and the topic suggested by Susan, probably a refresher, because this organization is called Maha Satipatthana Buddhist Society. So we decided to just go with Maha Satipatthana Sutta. So Maha Satipatthana means the great discourse on the 4 foundation of mindfulness. So Sutta is a discourse. And it's very important, very crucial, especially what Boon Ho has asked earlier. In daily life, can a person also practice? So it will be covered in the sutta. So the sutta is the teachings of the Buddha, and it's translated by an American monk, Ajahn Thanissaro, and it's found in this long discourse called the Digha Nikaya. Okay, next. So I'll just go through the format for the classes. Is probably like half an hour of theory, just like giving some directions and appreciation of the scriptural teachings, while the instructions for meditation, and followed by some Q&A and later guided meditation, which is the practical aspect. So we'll go through the theory first, and once we are kind of take bits of the theory, then we can bring it to the practice. For this case, this sutta is very long. It's called Digha Nikaya, which is the long discourse. So it's long for a reason. And the format will be, I'll just read through the scripture. Along the way, I'll just make some comments. Okay, so the introduction. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was staying in the Kuru country. Now there is a town of the Kurus called Kammasadhamma. There the Blessed One addressed the monks. Lord, the monks replied. Okay, so basically most of the scripture will start off with the venue and the audience. So the Buddha will be the one teaching and the monks are the audience. Right, so sometimes the Buddha will give sermons to lay persons, and for this case the audience are monks. Okay, next. The Blessed One said this. This is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of the right method, and for the realization of unbinding. In other words, the 4 frames of reference. Which 4? Okay, so the first opening statement by the Buddha talks about the agenda. What's his objective of giving this teaching? So the teaching is to overcome suffering, which is the Buddha's life purpose, of course. And for this particular teaching on mindfulness, it is used to overcome sorrow, lamentation, and disappearance of pain and distress. And somehow this is the method for purification. So this is very big words, very profound, or very big to take in. But fret not, we are going to break down later. And down here we have the term 4 frames of reference. So this is Ajahn Thanissaro's translation. The more common translation will be the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So next time you see the word 4 frames of reference, it means the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So it's covering the 4. Okay, next. Okay, so what are the 4 foundations? So you have the body, feelings, mind, and the mental qualities. So these are the 4 foundations of mindfulness, or the 4 frames of reference. So just read through. So the first one, there is the case where a monk remains focused on the body, in and of itself, ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. So this is the first foundation, mindfulness of the body. And the objective is to put aside greed and distress with reference to the world. So if a person practices mindfulness of the body and they get more greedy or they get more stressed, then that's not the kind of right mindfulness we're talking about. And the second one, feelings. So the same thing, put aside greed and distress. And the mind, the same thing, and mental qualities. In and of themselves, ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. Okay, so these are the 4 foundation mindfulness. So we're going to go through the 4, because if they mention just like that, body, feeling, mind, mental qualities, what does it mean? What does it mean? How to practice mindfulness on the body? So the Buddha is going to kind of give the explanation. So now there's 4 categories, body, feelings, mind, mental qualities. So let's look at the first category. The first category has 6 subcategories. So mindfulness on the body has 6 things. So you have the breath, mindfulness of breathing, that's part of mindfulness on the body. mindful of your 4 postures. That's also mindfulness of the body. So I'll just read through. Activities, imperatives of the body, 4 elements, 9 stages of bodily decomposition, like in the picture. Okay, so we're going to talk about mainly the 5, because the 6th one is hardly kind of practice unless you're in the field of doing autopsy or surgeon. Then you kind of look at body decomposing, or the undertaker. If not, it's a bit hard to visualize. Okay, so we are going to go through the first one, breath. So this is the instructions of the breath. So the full discourse is in another teaching called the Mindfulness of Breathing Sutta. So there is an Anapanasati Sutta that talks about the detailed steps of mindfulness of breathing. So in this Satipatthana Sutta, the mindfulness of breathing is the shorter version. So I'll just read through. There's a case where a monk, having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree, or to an empty building, sits down, folding his legs crosswise, holding his body erect, and setting mindfulness to the fore, which is to the front of the chest. Always mindful, he breathes in, mindful, he breathes out. Okay, so for mindfulness of breathing, it is mentioned the ideal physical setup is when you're sitting. When you're sitting. And the venue could be the wilderness, it can be under a tree or empty building. So the whole idea is try not to get too much distractions. If you're a busy city area, lots of distractions, lots of people calling you or walking around, a bit inconvenient. So normally for training, it's good to find a quiet area, secluded area to practice. So this is the instructions. But if you're, let's say, in a meditation class, the hall is full of people, I think that's fine. Okay, next. Alright, so these are the steps. So in this particular case, it just has 4 steps. The complete set of this mindfulness of breathing has 16 steps, 16 steps in the Anapanasati Sutta. But interestingly, in this mindfulness of the body, these 4 foundations of mindfulness, it only mentions 4 because it just covers the body. So the other 4 steps cover feelings, another 4 steps cover the mind, and another 4 steps covers mental qualities, the Dhamma. So total 16 steps. So I just read out the first 4. Breathing in long, he discerns, I am breathing in long, or breathing out long. He discerns, I am breathing out long. Okay, then number 2, or breathing in short, he discerns, I am breathing in short, or breathing out short, he discerns, I am breathing out short. Number 3, he trains himself, I will breathe in sensitive to the entire body. He trains himself, I will breathe out sensitive to the entire body. And number 4, he trains himself, I will breathe in calming bodily fabrications. He trains himself, I will breathe out calming bodily fabrications. Okay, so the first 4 steps is basically watching the breath and calming the body. So we call this mindfulness of the body. So it's not the complete set yet, because calming the body, anybody can calm the body. If you go and sleep, you're also calming the body. So there is more to that, but it's not really covered in this Satipatthana Sutta. Alright, so the first 2 steps, when you breathe in, breathe out, for different schools, we'll kind of interpret it differently. So that's why there are so many schools of meditation, so many different techniques. Some will say watch the breath here below the nostril. Some will say watch the breath at the abdomen region. Some will say watch the breath, which is feel the entire body breathing. So we have lots of interpretation. And for my case, it doesn't really matter because we are not training the breath. We're actually we are using the breath to calm down the mind and eventually learn to let go of the mind. So that is the purpose of any meditation object. Yeah, there are so many kinds of meditation subjects. We are not training them. We're actually making use of them to bring it to the mind. Trying to learn the mind, understand the mind. So that's the function. That's the purpose. All right. So the third step, sensitive to the entire body. Okay, so the first two steps, sometimes people will say you need to control your breathing. Some schools will need to control your breathing. For my case, it's more of a reflex action. You breathe in, breathe out like normal. Your own reflex action, there's no need to control. However long or short doesn't matter. It's your own reflex action. But the only thing you need to know is to note your breathing. Note your breathing. So there are again many schools out there. Some will do counting, do 1, 2. Some will do Bhutto chanting. So the Thai tradition will use Bhutto. Bhutto is the so-called mantra, the meaning for awakening. And Bhutto is the Buddha's quality of awakening. So they use that word to sort of take note of the breath, be aware of the breath. When they breathe in, breathe out, they use Bhutto. So in my routine, we'll be using loving kindness. You breathe in, breathe out. You wish the breath well and happy. Wish the breath well and happy. Because if not, a lot of people will be fighting with the breath, struggling with the breath. Sometimes you sort of see people, or you may kind of experience people or experience in yourself when you're meditating, end up you watch the breath, and your face looks constipated, because lots of controlling, lots of struggling, lots of fighting. So in our routine, we kind of use loving kindness. We breathe in, wish the breath well, breathe out, wish the breath happy. Okay, we have people entering the waiting room. Okay, we have 2 people raising their hands. You want to ask questions? Maybe you want to unmute your mic and ask questions.
Bante, I've locked the mic unmuting.
Oh, okay.
So those who want to raise hand, can you show your video, please? Mary?
Okay, if not, you can type in the chat box. Yeah, you can type in the chat box. We'll try to answer your questions in due time. Okay, then I'll just carry on. Okay, next slide, please. Align with the objective. So every portion, they will kind of mention this stock formula. So in music, you have like the verse and the chorus. Verse 1, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, chorus. So in this particular sutta, this particular paragraph is something like a chorus. So it mentions this way I'll just read through. In this way, he remains focused internally on the body in and of itself, or externally on the body in and of itself, or both internally and externally on the body in and of itself. Okay, so this is a very interesting point. I'll just try to cover this first. What is internally? Internally means you can feel inside the body, or externally. Externally would sometimes be paying attention outside the nostril, outside the body. So it can be inside or outside, or both internally and externally on the body in and of itself. Okay, for those who are here to troll or spam, kindly leave the room. Okay, then for the second point, or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to the body, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to the body, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the body. So this is the most important part of the teaching, to observe impermanence, to observe origination and passing away. So if a person don't observe this origination and passing away, then anybody can breathe. Anybody can breathe. A non-meditator also can breathe. Right? So the purpose of meditation eventually is to practice detachment. Yeah. So this watching the breath, you need to observe impermanence. Watch arising and passing. Yeah, arising and passing. Then the third one, is mindfulness that there is a body, is maintained to an extent of knowledge and remembrance, and remains independent, unsustained by, not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself. Okay, so earlier on I mentioned the breath meditation has a total of 16 steps, 16 steps. So the last 4 steps out of the 16 steps mentions impermanence and detachment. So if a person just breathe in and out just to calm the mind only, or calm the body only, that's not good enough. You don't reach the objective. You don't gain wisdom. So the purpose of meditation or Buddhist meditation is to gain wisdom. Gain wisdom to practice detachment. Alright, so it's easier to let go. And the last point is, if you cannot observe, let's say a person cannot observe any arising or passing phenomenon, then that's fine. You just be patient, just wait, and wait until there's some evidence appearing, then you can sort of label, can reflect on impermanence. So in our routine, I will always give the metaphor of rowing the boat. We have the stream, or in the Buddhist metaphor, going across to the other shore. So imagine we are rowing a boat to another destination, and if along the way there's lots of currents, lots of these waves, tsunamis, currents, whatever you want to call it, and those things are like our cravings, our stray thoughts, our greed, our anger, and it will push our boat away from our destination. So our purpose is to keep rowing, right? No matter how calm or how stormy the environment, we just keep rowing until we reach the destination. So the reflection of impermanence, or the kind of right thought we are generating, is like rowing the boat. All right, so no matter what happens, do not stop rowing until you are non-detached. Sorry, until you have non-clinging. Right, so that is the function. Okay, the next slide. Okay, next is the 4 postures. This one is first posture. When you're walking, know that you're walking. When you're standing, know that you're standing. When you're sitting, you know that you're sitting. And when you're lying down, you know that you are lying down. Or whatever posture your body is in, you must know. So that is the second foundation, the second out of the 6 of the mindfulness of the body. Okay, next. Okay, same chorus. I don't have to repeat everything. You can just read on your own. It's exactly the same as the previous chorus. So whatever posture your body is in, you have to label as impermanent. Label as impermanent. Some schools will kind of give a different labeling. Like if you move your hand, you must know it's moving, 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 moving. If you turn your head, you must know it's turning, turning, turning. That's the next one. But the most important thing is the second point, which is to understand arising and passing. If you do not observe this, then any movement will be like doing Tai Chi or Qigong or any kind of physiotherapy. You know that you're moving, you're aware, but there's no detachment. So the kind of reflection we need to think in our mind, in our head, is to label impermanence. Whatever movement, whatever posture, you need to label impermanence. So that is the second point. Okay, then the third. Next slide. Yeah, okay. So the third point will be activities. So this one extends beyond the 4 postures. Basically, it's all your activities. Furthermore, when going forward and returning, he makes himself fully alert when looking toward, looking away, when bending, extending his limbs, when carrying the cloak, his upper robe and his bowl, when eating, drinking, chewing, savoring, when urinating, defecating, walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, or waking up, talking, remaining silent. He makes himself fully alert. Alright, so this is where just now I mentioned on turning, you have to know you're turning, and moving, you must know you're moving. That label is not good enough. Okay, next slide. You have to, or the more effective labeling is to use impermanence. Use impermanence. So when you're moving around, you sort of use impermanence, change. If you find your mind too scattered, you cannot focus, you cannot find anything, the mind running all around, then you use a samatha kind of meditation. Samatha means to focus on a theme. So we can use loving kindness, we can use Buddha, anything that fixes the mind that is nothing to do with impermanence, we call it samatha. Anything to do with impermanence, to observe origination and passing phenomenon, that is called vipassana, that is called insight. To see things as they are, to gain wisdom. So you need these both kinds of meditation. So samatha is to strengthen the mind, is like charging the battery of a device, and the vipassana is to use up the battery, but to investigate, to do work, spiritual work. So that is the 2 functions of these kinds of meditation, samatha and vipassana. So in this case, this particular sutta is covering mainly on vipassana. Except for the breath meditation, which comes down the body, is kind of maybe a bit samatha based or gearing towards samatha, but towards the end of the breath meditation it mentions observe this origination and passing phenomenon, which is vipassana. So likewise for the rest, maybe I emphasize again internally and externally. Internally would be your own body, your own physical body. Externally would be someone else's body, someone else's move. You also can look and say, okay, this is impermanent. So it doesn't always have to be fixated on yourself. Neither you shouldn't be always fixated on other people's body. Ideally, when we meditate, is to for the monastic rule, we have this rule to gaze downwards, not to just look around. If you look at Buddha image, like from the beginning of the slide, Buddha image is always kind of like gazing downwards. But if there are people wanting to talk to you, or you need to look out for some kind of emergency, you need to look around, that's fine. So when you look externally, you can also be mindful of impermanence, arising and passing phenomenon. So that is the practice. Okay, so hopefully I've covered Boon Ho's question. So in all activities, you can also practice this mindfulness. After this class, you have no excuse to say, I have no time to practice. Because every moment is an opportunity to practice. Either we choose to follow the thoughts that lead to clinging, which is our autopilot kind of thoughts, or we deliberately think of thoughts that lead to detachment. So in this case, we are intentionally reflecting on impermanence. So this one will lead to detachment. So hopefully that helps. So I think I cover this for today. I don't want to talk too deeply because there are many objects of meditation, many more to go. So we stick to this first and see how it goes. Yeah. Any questions on the ground? No questions? All okay? Those who are here can unmute and ask the questions. Okay, there's no issues. Then we go for a 5-minute break. And we'll see you back later for the guided meditation. Huh? So during the 5 minutes, you can do your stretching, go for a toilet break, mindfully, mindful of impermanence. And we'll see you back. Okay, let's see who's back. If you have returned, kindly show me a sign that you have returned. Okay, alright, so if majority returned, then we can start the guided meditation. So we'll do 2 portions. So first is the formal sitting, and hopefully through the formal sitting you can bring out to your daily lives. That means even when you're walking about, when you're talking, you can also apply. So that is the real practice of mindfulness. Okay, so you find a comfortable sitting posture. Make sure your back is upright and the rest of the body relaxed. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is observe the body. Learn to relax the body to prevent any kind of tension. And to assist us, we are going to use this categorization. We call this the 4 elements. Mindful of the 4 elements. So the 4 elements are the earth, fire, wind, and water elements. So earth element represents any kind of hard or soft sensations. Fire element represents any kind of temperature, hot and cold sensations. Wind element represents any kind of movement. Our breath also part of the wind element. And water element is the moist or dry sensations. So as we feel the entire body, whatever sensation appear, first we wish them well and happy. We let those sensations appear naturally by themselves, no need to control. Do not deliberately generate any sensation. Whatever appear naturally, make peace in them. So there's no fighting, no struggling. We just wish them well and happy. And every time a new sensation appear, may they be well and happy. New sensation appear, wish them well and happy. So in this phase of the meditation, can be done in all postures. When you're moving around, you can feel the elements as well. And sometimes these sensations have feelings, painful feelings, pleasant feelings, neutral feelings. We also make peace with them, wish them well and happy, do not fight or struggle with them. So every sensation appearing are just like the waves and currents. And our job is to keep rowing the boat, try to reach the destination of peace. Do not let the mind idle. Do not do nothing. So the sutta that we read so far, full of active instructions, never once asks you to do nothing. So doing nothing is what we do before we go to bed. So if we do nothing, there's a high chance of sleeping. So keep wishing all the sensations well and happy. Until you are no longer bothered by these bodily sensations. Make sure the mind is calmed down. So if the mind gets calmer, means you're on the right track. If you are getting more and more agitated, means something is wrong. So that has got to do with your right view. So right view is basically the Four Noble Truths: suffering, cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the path leading to cessation of suffering. So if a person doesn't have right view, they are aiming for something else, there's some other agenda in the mind. The more they meditate, the more anxiety, more stress, more tension. And if they are having right view, they are invested in the Eightfold Path, they keep generating right thought, they put in right effort, keep on repeating, wishing the sensations well and happy. So the wishing of the sensations well and happy is part of right thought, thoughts of non-anger. And this will reduce the tension, reduce craving. Okay, so this is just calming bodily fabrication. And if you want to use something grosser, you can feel the in and out breathing. So this is where you choose the breath body. Choose the breath body. So you can use one small point. For example, below the nostril, above the upper lip, there could be one ideal point where you can feel the in and out breathing, the air entering, exiting from the nostril. So that is one obvious point. Or if you do not wish, you can use the abdomen, that's also fine. Like maybe some people wearing mask and they cannot feel the nostril, then you feel somewhere else. So the whole idea is we are not training the breath, we are making use of the breath to calm the mind. So you can use any point where there is in and out breathing. Or you can use a larger area, like just now the entire body, maybe your blood circulation, your heart pumping, whatever it is, as long as you can feel the entire body. Okay, once you have found this so-called breath body, then you stick with this breath body. Do not change. We stick to that particular point. Whatever distraction, you ignore and come back to that so-called breath body, which is the area of attention where you are invested. Whatever stray thoughts you have, come back to the breath body. So the breath body is your evidence, real-time evidence, no imagination. So this evidence, we call this the mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of the body. And we let the breath inhale, exhale naturally by themselves. No need to control. The only thing you need to be aware is when you label it. Whenever there's inhalation, wish the breath well. Exhalation, wish the breath happy. So this is the minimal rate of reflection. Anything slower than that will be daydreaming. So we are in no way controlling the breathing. We are making peace with the breath. Inhale well, exhale happy. So this is reprogramming the mind. Reprogramming the mind, the life philosophy. When you deal with anything in life, treat them well and happy. Wish them well and happy. So if you cannot even make peace with the breath, then you can forget about bigger tasks. So the labeling or the repeated labeling is to generate wakefulness. Right thought, right effort. If you leave your mind autopilot, it will drift off. So you can take note the rate of calmness. If your mind has reached this kind of calm, but it cannot calm down any further, then we call this the stability point. The mind sort of without aversion at the moment. So now we can reduce the greed and the clinging by introducing impermanence. So we are using the same evidence, inhale, exhale, same evidence. The only label we change is the well and happy. We change it to rising and passing. You can use any label associated with impermanence, rising, falling, anicca, change, inconstant. Just pick a favorite and keep repeating. So if there is any kind of detachment taking place, there should be like a sudden surge of joy arising just for a short while. It's just a passing phase. It's a sign that you're on the right track, but regardless of what happened, that is also impermanent. Everything arises and passes. All emotions, all phenomena, they change all the time. So as long as you stop rowing the boat, you stop thinking of impermanence, then you get flushed away to nowhere. So the main anchor, the evidence is the breath. Anything else is just distraction, it's just a byproduct. And then you see how far can the mind detach, how far can the mind let go, how far can the mind settle down. Okay, so once the mind is kind of calm, then we take note of this emotion. We call this the baseline emotion. No jhanas yet. Maybe a bit of vipassana, maybe a bit of insight. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to shift to this sublime state, and this is mindful of the body internally. And what about externally? So now we're going to wish all beings in all directions well and happy. above, below, and all across, in front, behind, left, right, all directions. So you let the mind expand. No need to exert, no need to push. We let the mind enlarge naturally by itself, yeah, no resistance, just a relaxed wish. Okay, and in that expanded field of awareness, doesn't matter how far the mind extends, whatever sensation you detect, you're going to wish all beings well and happy. So there's no need to visualize, no visualization involved. Everything is feeling of senses. So all beings are made up of these so-called sensations. Lowest common denominator. That's like the non-discrimination approach to cover all beings. Whatever sensation appear, then we're going to wish all beings well and happy. So it doesn't matter if it's inside the body or outside the body, near or far. Any sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. So try not to visualize. Once you visualize, or certain being look very cute, or certain being look very disgusting or very scary, then the mind will generate lots of dramas and stories already. So do not go there. Come back to the evidence, come back to the sensations, back to the four elements. Any sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. Keep generating the right thought, keep rowing the boat. Okay, if let's say all the conditions are right, you keep on rowing the boat, then it will generate this right concentration. So if you experience a pleasant emotion, maybe a happy or joyful emotion, something more peaceful compared to the baseline emotion, then that would indicate the first level of concentration. And regardless of what you experience, keep on rowing the boat, keep on wishing all beings well and happy. Okay, so this is just the samatha aspect of this loving kindness, and we're going to add some insight, some wisdom how to cultivate a more unconditional loving kindness without much attachment. So we're going to reflect on impermanence to sort of shake off this attachment. So whatever sensation appear, that's your evidence, and we're going to label it as impermanent. So we keep repeating impermanence, impermanence, or rising and falling. Okay, and if you start to experience this joy and happiness start to fade away, it will evolve to a different emotion, something neutral but refreshing, a bit more alert. So we call that equanimity, normally associated with the fourth level of concentration. So we're going to just take note of it, but the main thing is keep rowing of the boat. Okay, reflecting on impermanence, treat everything else as byproduct, as a distraction. Okay, and we are now shifting to the second sublime state, which is compassion. So loving kindness is to overcome anger, compassion is to overcome cruelty. So for compassion, we are going to wish all beings, may they be free from suffering. So in our routine, we are using the non-discrimination approach, so there's no need to visualize. So all beings include those who are sick or healthy, rich or poor. As long as they cling on to those sensations, they cling on to anything, then that will result in tension and suffering. So whenever we detect any sensation, we are going to wish all beings free from suffering. So always come back to the evidence, the sensations, real-time evidence, no need to imagine. Once you start to imagine, conventional compassion will need to imagine, need to worry, need to plan, need to care for this person, that person, need to worry, and that results in a lot of story making. So very draining. So now we learn to recharge the mind. We don't overthink for this time. Any sensation appear, then we wish all beings, may they be free from suffering. So the whole idea is not to get dragged into the stories. Come back to the sensations, appear, may all beings be free from suffering. Okay, you start to find that, hey, how come this compassion feel joyful and there's a pleasant kind of emotion? So that is the concentrative kind of compassion, normally associated with the second level of concentration. So the conventional kind of compassion, like very sad, very sorrowful kind of emotion. So we try to steer away from this at this point of time. Keep on wishing all beings free from suffering. So our Buddhist role models on compassion, like the Buddha or the Kuan Yin Bodhisattva, is usually depicted as smiling. You don't see them pulling a long face. So we are trying to gear to the middle way kind of compassion to prevent drain out, to prevent burnout or depression. And no matter what happens, keep on wishing all beings free from suffering. Okay, then now we're going to add some insight, some wisdom. And we're going to reflect how to overcome this suffering, which is to not cling on to these sensations. So we're going to keep observing impermanence. So the same thing, evidence, sensations, and we keep labeling, impermanence, rising, falling, keep repeating. Okay, and if the joy and happiness start to disappear, and instead of feeling the equanimity like before, and this time round one may experience a kind of blankness, like as though you're sucked into a kind of void or space. So we call this the perception of infinite space. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence, treat everything else as a byproduct. So keep rowing the boat. Okay, then we shift to the third sublime state called appreciative joy. So appreciative joy is to overcome jealousy, and for that we rejoice in the accomplishments of all beings using the non-discrimination method. All beings, regardless of winners or losers, as long as they go through the process, they'll at least gain some kind of life experience. Similarly, when we detect any sensation, we also gain some kind of life experience. So when a new sensation appears, we rejoice with all beings. New sensation appears, rejoice with all beings. And similarly, once you keep rejoicing, if all the conditions are right, then one may experience this emotion of happiness, normally associated with the third level of concentration. And regardless of what you experience, keep on rejoicing with all beings. Treat everything else as a byproduct. Okay, then we're going to add some insight, some wisdom, and we're going to reflect that all beings will eventually be separated from what they have achieved. And similarly, whatever sensations that appear, they don't stay fast 24/7, they come and go every moment. So we keep on reflecting on impermanence. once this joy and happiness start to disappear, unlike previously where you feel blankness, this time round is the opposite. It might feel like a sense of wholeness or fullness, as though you have filled up the entire surroundings. And we call that the perception of infinite consciousness. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence, treat everything else as byproduct. Okay, and we're going to switch to the fourth sublime state, which is equanimity. So equanimity is to cultivate a balanced mind, or an unshaken mind, or not so easy shakeable mind. So we're going to use the reflection of karma. All beings are the owners of the karma, heir to the karma. Whatever good and bad that we do, we shall become the recipient. And in this particular routine, there's no need to speculate what you've done in the past. We just observe all the sensations happening right now. Whatever appearing is due to the ripening of past causes. So we don't have to speculate or guess. No dramas, no stories. Whatever pleasant sensations appearing, that's due to good karmas ripening. And if any unpleasant sensation appear, then that's due to bad karmas ripening. And if any neutral sensation appear, then that's due to neutral karmas ripening. So in short, all experiences are conditioned by karma. New sensation appear, karma. New sensation appear, karma. Evidence and right reflection. Okay, and if the mind is more accepting of karma, then one may experience this equanimity, the emotion of equanimity, the neutral and alert kind of emotion, similar to the one you've experienced with loving kindness combined with impermanence. So that's the indicator for the fourth level of concentration. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on karma. Even concentrative states are part of karma. Okay, due to time constraint, same gentle reminder in all our activities, we can be mindful of either the sublime states or mindful of impermanence, standing, sitting, walking, or lying down, yeah? And with that, we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, but informally still can cultivate this mindfulness. Alright, so it's 10 o'clock. Any questions or issues? Alright, if there are no issues, I take it there's no issues. If no one unmute or raise the hand, then we can conclude with the chant. So there's Anumodana, dedicating merits. Akasata ca Bhumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyang tang anumoditva Chirang rakantu loka sasanang Etavata ca amhehi Sampadang punya sampadang Sabe deva, sabe bhuta, sabe satta anumodantu, sabba sampati siddhya. Dedication of merits to the departed. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukhita hontu nyatayo. Aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu, yava nibbana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we conclude by paying respects to the Buddha, bowing 3 times. First bow, second bow, third bow. Okay, so that's the end of the first lesson,